bueno, ustedes fueron los primeros, así que estaban en todas partes. Carles era parte de nuestro equipo ya.
Sí, ya, no, están súper contentos.
Sí.
Y yo ayer lo dije también a los high level, les dije que muchas gracias al secretariado por todo el apoyo que habéis dado al equipo de Andorra.
No, sí, felices nosotros.
Y nosotros somos muy orgullosos de poder también venir aquí y hablar del trabajo que se ha hecho, porque hemos trabajado mucho.
Está muy bien.
Bueno, pues mucho
Así
gusto,
que sí,
Verónica,
elijan
gracias.
dónde quieran estar y en el momento pueden levantarla, sí.
Okay, so we should be fine, but if anything, I'll wait from this side.
Okay, okay. How are you?
I'm fine. And you?
All good? All perfect.
As it can be.
Also, like,
Yeah.
yes.
I'm here, so
Okay.
you at least have one panelist.
Okay. Yeah, we reserved this for the panelists, but it's okay.
Yeah, I know,
I know you're there, and
yeah,
yeah, good. Thank you, Mr. Chow.
How are you?
Long time no see.
I know. Yeah.
So we got you as our speaker. As I mentioned before, when you enter, you will see headphones. There will be Turkish-English translation, so please get your headphones from at the door. Palo. So, Excellencies, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you today to this high-level dialogue on transparency, in which we will be sharing experiences and sustaining this momentum for BTR submissions. This event has been organized by the COP30 Presidency, COP29 Presidency and its initiative, the Baku Transparency Platform, the incoming COP31 Presidency, and the UN Climate Change through the Together for Transparency initiative. My name is Veronica Colerio. I'm from the Transparency Division in the UNFCCC Secretariat, and I will be moderating this dialogue today. As I said before, there will be Turkish-English interpretation, so please, you can pick your headphones at the entrance of the room. And it will be good that now we will open and we will have the opening remark sessions. And to open this dialogue today, I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Fatma Barank, the COP31 CEO and Deputy Minister. Mrs. Fatma, you have the floor.
Sayın Bakanlar, kıymetli delegasyon başkanları, değerli katılımcılar, öncelikle Paris Anlaşması'nın gelişmiş şeffaflık çerçevesinin uygulanmasına yönelik bu önemli toplantının düzenlenmesinde emeği geçen Sekreteryaya, COP29 ve COP30 başkanlıklarına teşekkürlerimi sunuyorum. Türkiye olarak şeffaflığı daha güçlü iklim politikaları geliştiren, kamu kurumları arasındaki koordinasyonu arttıran, yatırım ve finansman ortamını güçlendiren ve ülkelerin uzun vadeli dönüşüm kapasitesini destekleyen stratejik bir araç olarak değerlendiriyoruz. İlk raporlama süreci tüm taraflar açısından önemli bir dönüm noktasıdır ve COP29'da birinci BTR raporunu sunan ilk 5 ülkeden birisi Türkiye olmuştur. Bu süreç yalnızca veri üretim kapasitesini değil, aynı zamanda kurumsal sahiplenmeyi, politika uyumunu ve çok taraflı işbirliğini de güçlendirmiştir. Raporlama süreci bize açık bir gerçeği göstermiştir. Şeffaflık yalnızca ilerlemeyi ölçen bir mekanizma değildir. Aynı zamanda ilerlemeyi hızlandıran bir araçtır. 2026 yılı bu açıdan kritik bir eşiktir. Taraflar bir yandan ilk BTR döngüsünün değerlendirme süreçlerini sürdürürken, diğer yandan ikinci raporlama hazırlıklarına başlamaktadır. Bu nedenle mevcut siyasi ivmenin korunması büyük önem taşımaktadır. Türkiye, 2026 yılında COP31 başkanlığını üstlenecek bir ülke olarak gelişmiş şeffaflık çerçevesinin etkin uygulamasının güçlü siyasi sahiplenmeye, kapsayıcı diyalog ve uluslararası dayanışma gerektirdiğine inanmaktadır. Bu bakımdan COP31 yaklaşımımızı 3 temel ilke üzerine inşa ediyoruz. Diyalog, uzlaşı ve eylem. Şeffaflık da tam olarak bu 3 unsurun kesişiminde yer almaktadır. Diyalog, taraflar arasında güven inşa edilmesini sağlar. Uzlaşı, ortak sorumluluk anlayışını güçlendirir. Eylem ise alınan kararların sahada ölçülebilir sonuçlara dönüşmesini mümkün kılar. Gelişmiş şeffaflık çerçevesinin başarısı da ancak bu anlayışla mümkün olacaktır. Bugün özellikle gelişmekte olan ülkelerin kapasite ihtiyaçlarının ve destek gereksinimlerinin devam ettiğini görüyoruz. Hiçbir tarafın geride bırakılmaması büyük önem taşımaktadır. Bu nedenle finansal, teknik ve kurumsal destek mekanizmalarının zamanında öngörülebilir ve erişilebilir şekilde sürdürülmesi kritik önem taşımaktadır. Aynı zamanda deneyim paylaşımı ve karşılıklı öğrenme süreçlerinin güçlendirilmesi gerektiğine de inanıyoruz. İlk BTR deneyimlerinden elde edilen dersler yalnızca ulusal sistemlerin geliştirilmesine değil, aynı zamanda 2028 yılında tamamlanması öngörülen rehber dokümanların gözden geçirme sürecine de önemli katkılar sağlayacaktır. Türkiye olarak gelişmiş şeffaflık çerçevesinin geleceğini daha kapsayıcı, daha uygulanabilir ve daha etkin bir küresel iklim yönetişiminin temel unsurlarından biri olarak görüyoruz. Asıl ihtiyaç güvenilir veriyle desteklenen, şeffaf biçimde izlenen ve somut sonuç üretilen iklim eylemidir. COP31 başkanlığı sürecinde Türkiye, çok taraflılığa olan güçlü bağlılığıyla taraflar arasında güven güçlendirilmesine, şeffaflık sistemlerinin kurumsallaşmasına ve uygulama kapasitesinin artırılmasına katkı sunmaya devam edecektir. Beni dinlediğiniz için çok teşekkür ediyorum.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And now I would like to give the floor to Ambassador Lilian Chagas, COP30 Chief Negotiator. You have the floor.
Thank you. I try to get closer to the mic. Well, thank you for this opportunity to share some thoughts with you. We welcome very much the opportunity to have this high-level event. We are fully aligned with the objective of this dialogue to sustain political momentum for transparency under the Paris Agreement and to ensure the timely preparation and submission of BTRs. Transparency is one of the foundations of effective implementation. The credibility of the multilateral climate regime depends on it. Transparency sheds light on where the system is working well and where further improvement is needed. In Brazil, our transparency work is grounded in methodological rigor under the careful and committed coordination of the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation, whose representatives are here with us, and I'd like to compliment them. Also, our effort is consistently informed by the best available science. We see that arrangement as essential to ensure that transparency is not only robust and credible, but also useful for guiding action and supporting continuous improvement. This commitment has also shaped the way Brazil has engaged with the first reporting cycle under the Enhanced Transparency Framework. Brazil submitted its first biennial transparency report on time in 2024. We have since gone through the technical expert review process, and we will engage in the facilitative multilateral consideration of progress, FMCP, the best acronym in the process. That's going to be tomorrow for the first time. We are already preparing our next BTR and intend to submit in a timely manner before the opening of COP31 in Antalya, taking into account the recommendations emerging from the technical review process. In this sense, we seek to ensure progressive improvement and learning across reporting cycles. Our first biennial transparency report demonstrates that Brazil achieved a significant reduction in greenhouse gas emissions in comparison with 2005. This illustrates the value of transparency, translating public policies into measurable results. At the same time, Brazil is fully aware that developing countries continue to face serious challenges in preparing BTRs, national communications, NDCs, NAPs, and other reporting documents. Building and maintaining highly qualified qualified technical teams is in itself a demanding task. Ensuring stable institutional arrangements, reliable data flows, and coordination across sectors and levels of government are also big challenges. Access to support remains a critical concern. Many developing countries continue to face barriers in accessing the financial flows that are meant to help them implement their transparency obligations. If implementation is to advance at the speed and scale required, support must also become more accessible, more predictable, and more responsive to national realities. One practical step forward would be to streamline access to financing for transparency. Existing channels, particularly those associated with the GEF, should become better aligned with the needs of developing countries. To improve accessibility would make a meaningful difference in this area. Brazil speaks on this matter as a developing country that knows these constraints from our own experience. However, we also believe that even within those constraints, there is room for cooperation and solidarity among countries of the Global South. Brazil has therefore sought to contribute with partners in the developing world by sharing experiences, taking part in training efforts, and engaging in practical cooperation on transparency. This includes initiatives such as the Lusophone Cluster on Climate Transparency, as well as participation in events for Latin American countries, such as the consultative group of experts, regional training workshops in the region. Brazil will remain fully committed to this agenda. We will continue to invest in the quality of our reporting, to learn from each cycle of review and consideration, to work constructively with other parties in support of a stronger transparency framework aligned with the needs of the developing countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Chao Feng, incoming COP31 Deputy Chief Negotiator. You have the floor.
Thank you, Veronica, and good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be with you here today. The Enhanced Transparency Framework for the Paris Agreement really represents a success in our work together on the Paris Agreement and in its implementation, and we're very pleased to be sitting up here with our friends in Turkey, Brazil, Azerbaijan, to talk about this important issue. Our joint involvement really follows a growing tradition of COP presidencies, sustaining and building momentum for reporting under the Paris Agreement. And as Ambassador Shaka has said, I really also look forward to all four of our countries participating in the facilitated multilateral consideration of progress tomorrow, and try to say that very quickly. Transparency and building momentum for the submission of BDRs is one of our shared priorities this year for COP31 with Turkey, and we know that this focus is shared by our partners here, and we've heard from many others similarly during the plenary session, opening plenary statements as well. We see today's event as a really good opportunity to hear more about the value of BTR submissions, as well as the process, and of course to encourage all countries to make their best efforts to submit by the end of the year, and to learn from you also what challenges remain to support those submissions. The first cycle of BTR submissions in 2024 saw unprecedented levels of reporting by Paris Agreement parties, and I really commend the efforts of Azerbaijan for its commitment as COP29 president to build momentum and to help all those countries submit on time. Those reports really highlight the full suite of climate actions countries are undertaking, the trends, emissions, progress toward NDC, success stories in mitigation, adaptation, the projects that countries need to strengthen climate adaptation, of course, support. And it shows that the BTRs can also not just be reports for information, but also guides and important signals for the world in terms of investment, in terms of opportunities, in terms of action, and of course, places where progress need to be made. That's why submissions by as many countries as possible in 2026 is so important, both from countries who have already submitted their first BTRs, but also from those who are working hard toward the completion of their first one. At the national level, preparing and submitting BTRs provides the core underpinning information for targeted policies, At the global level, BTRs submitted this year will form key inputs for our deliberations here, including the GST, but also make clear to the world where the opportunities are, where the trends are. And we know the world is watching this very carefully to inform their investment and decision making. And so we want to work with all of you this year to maximize the number of BTRs that are submitted. We know that capacity and experience are really important elements alongside, of course, the political profile. And many partners are making important contributions to this work. On our part, Australia is supporting workshops in our region and sustained bilateral cooperation with key partners to help them build their capacity. With our partners in Turkey, we look forward to bringing together ministers at COP31 to showcase their country's commitments to submissions in 2026 and highlight the continued successes. We are continuing working with Azerbaijan on their plans to bring together senior officials at Climate Week in Baku and to generate momentum for submissions this year. And we hope to welcome experts to Australia in late September for a workshop to bridge gaps to possible submissions and help maximize, again, the number of submissions this year. This is a task, of course, that involves so many hands and so many experts and countries, and we invite all of you to participate together. And I think the support that the partners here for the work that they're doing to make the Enhanced Transparency Framework of the Paris Agreement a continued success, and I also look forward to the illuminating conversations, discussions in this session today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Yalchin Rafiyev, the COP29 chief negotiator. You have the floor.
Thank you. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let me start by expressing my sincere gratitude to the UNFCCC Secretariat, the COP30 Presidency, and the incoming COP31 Presidency for their support in organizing this event. Dear colleagues, as we all know, transparency is a backbone of the implementation of the Paris Agreement, and it is essential for tracking progress across the pillars of mitigation, adaptation, and means of implementation, as well as for assessing our collective efforts towards achieving our shared climate goals. Recognizing the critical importance of transparency from the very beginning of its term, and in light of its first biennial transparency report submissions, the COP29 presidency made climate transparency one of the key priorities. We used very relevant, important opportunity and platform to maintain strong political attention and momentum around transparency implementation. To this end, the COP29 presidency launched the Baku Global Transparency Platform to support countries in preparing and submitting their BTRs and advancing the implementation of Enhanced Transparency Framework. Together with international partners, we organized a series of regional workshops under the BTP to strengthen national capacities and ensure that no country is left behind. Furthermore, Azerbaijan succeeded in elevating transparency to the highest political level. During COP29, a high-level ministerial roundtable was organized to recognize and commend early BTR submissions, underscoring the critical role of transparency in building trust, accountability, and ambition under the Paris Agreement. Our engagement on climate transparency has continued well beyond COP29. In line with our commitment to advancing transparency beyond COP29, we continued our engagement through the BTP. Together with the UNFCCC Secretariat, we convened a dedicated event here in Bonn to review progress, discuss priorities, and identify ways to strengthen support for developing countries in implementing the ETF. We also partnered with COP30 Presidency of Brazil and the UNFCCC Secretariat to organize a ministerial meeting on transparency at COP30 under the BTP in Belém, where ministers reviewed recent progress, exchanged experiences and lessons learned, and identified priorities for advancing transparency efforts. Dear colleagues, with the completion of the first full BTR cycle, we have a valuable stock of knowledge, lessons learned, and practical experience to build upon as we move into the preparation and submission of the next round of BTRs. The experience gained through the first cycle provides a strong foundation for improving the quality of future reports, better understanding countries' needs, and identify effective ways to support BTR preparation. This next cycle comes at a particularly important moment as countries advance the implementation of their new NDCs, NAPs, and the NCQG on climate finance. The forthcoming BTRs will provide an opportunity to reflect progress made, identify implementation challenges, and assess support needs. At the same time, capacities and circumstances vary significantly across countries. While the ETF applies to all parties, many developing countries continue to require targeted support, technical expertise, and capacity-building assistance. We believe that this session, together with future engagements under the Baku Global Transparency Platform and in cooperation with the COP30 and COP31 Presidencies, will help identify common challenges, emerging needs, and practical areas where the international community can provide enhanced support. I'm also pleased to share that Azerbaijan has started preparing its second BTR, and likewise as Brazil, we are confident that we will be able to submit it by COP31. Additionally, I would like to reaffirm our commitment to advancing climate transparency in the future. Together with our partners, we'll continue this work through dedicated events, including one during UNFCCC Baku Climate Action Week in September and at COP31. We look forward to working with the incoming COP31 presidency to sustain momentum for the second round of BTR submissions and stand ready to support Turkey and Australia in making COP31 another success for climate transparency. And BTP, as one of the lasting legacies of the COP29 presidency, stands as an active vehicle to supporting and implementation of the ETF and strengthening transparency under the Paris Agreement. We hope that this gathering and future engagements under BTP will further strengthen our shared understanding of BTR preparation, identify remaining challenges and capacity gaps, and encourage all parties to submit their reports and demonstrate progress in implementing their NDCs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now I would like to give the floor to the last speaker of this panel, Mr. Daniel Violetti, Senior Director for Programs Coordination of UN Climate Change. Daniela, you have the floor.
Thanks, Veronica. Excellencies, delegates, colleagues, great pleasure to be with you today in this important high-level events. And let me start by thanking the presidencies of COP29, COP30, and incoming COP31 presidencies for their leadership in bringing us together for this dialogue. As we are now in a new year of climate multilateralism and the year of implementation, we see transparency at its heart. Transparent climate data is essential to enable stronger climate policies, identify gaps, and show where investment and support are most needed. And transparency underpins trust, the foundation of multilateralism. And it is key to understanding global progress towards our collective goals and commitments ahead of the second global stocktake. So the enhanced transparency framework is central to all these efforts. We know, and you will hear more about the fact that 2/3 of parties have now submitted their first BTRs, and over 20 and I think 82 technical BTRs reviews have been conducted so far. So we really have to maintain this momentum and go further to realize the full potential of the ETF. And we know that this depends on high-level political commitment as well. It relies on adequate resourcing, prioritization within national agendas, alignment with broader climate ambition, and sustained support. So some parties are still finalizing their first BTRs, others are already working hard on their second, due by the end of this year. And we know that developing countries need continued support to do so, to ensure the ETF process is effective and inclusive. So we at the Secretariat will continue to provide parties with training and technical support to implement the ETF, alongside with many partners that also you will hear today working with us in this effort. And we will keep supporting transparency activities through the year to strengthen the process and provide a forum for parties to share knowledge and experience. So that includes, we heard, the facilitative multilateral consideration of progress this week, but we'll also ensure that climate information is accessible to all, including through the Climate Data Hub launched earlier this year. The hub brings together reliable, user-friendly data from more than 130 countries that is easy to analyze and use to support evidence-based climate action. It already contains data on finance, technology transfer, and capacity building. And over the next few months, we will add information on greenhouse gas emissions and NDC implementation. We are also redeveloping the NAFCA portal to strengthen tracking of progress towards commitments from non-party stakeholders and cooperative initiatives. All these are essential during this era of implementation. So we really urge all parties to double down on transparency, to report fully, yes, but also to use climate data to inform decisions, raise ambition, and attract support for further action. We know transparent reporting connects global commitments with tangible results for people on the ground. So, colleagues, concluding, sustained investment in transparency is an investment in implementation and essential for fighting climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for these inspiring words and actually for setting the scene for today's interactive dialogue. I would give a round of applause to all of you and invite you to leave the podium as well as we receive our next speakers. Thank you very much. I would invite to the podium the EU, Maldives, and Kenya, please. I see them here in the first row. No, you will have. So while our speakers for the second panel come up, I will tell you that now we will have a panel for country experiences, but also a dialogue that I hope you all be able to participate. The idea is that our panelists will set the scene and then we'll start the dialogue. Our speakers will talk about the lessons learned, the good practices, also the challenges and the benefits of transparency for national climate policy and planning. I will remind the speakers that please limit your interventions to 5 minutes so that we can have enough time for all the parties to speak in this dialogue as well. And with that, I will, if you're all set, yes, I will give the floor to Mr. Frederick Ouma from the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry from Kenya. Frederick, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Happy to see all of you in this important event, a high-level event, where we are supposed to share our experiences with the implementation of the Enhanced Transparency Framework. For Kenya, it's important to start by highlighting that the work on the ETF was launched when we had not developed extensive experience in the reporting process. We had not submitted a BUR. We had only submitted 2 national communications, if I'm not wrong. And we were supposed to transition to the ETF. So our first assignment was to organize our systems and see where the capacity gaps are and what we need to do within the short time that we had to be able to effectively submit our biannual transparency report within the set deadline, which was December of 2024. Some of the positive aspects within the country that facilitated our work was one, the fact that the country already had in place an elaborate policy, legal, and institutional framework for climate change, so it was quite easy to fit the process for developing the BTR. Secondly, there were experts that had been trained previously in a different process, and our work was basically to find ways of finding where they were and seeing whether we can build a national team to be able to deliver the assignment. I think the third was we had made a decision, a deliberate one, that we were not going to work with consultancies because we wanted to build national capacity, well aware that the ETF system that we established is not easy to implement in a consultancy format because you need experts who can participate in the review process, you need experts who can support you in the FMCP process, and that technically means that you need government experts working on this on a day-to-day basis. Three, of course, then we decided to map the different support providers because we decided to use government processes. Our procurement systems were therefore going to delay a little bit. So we mapped the different support providers, including the CG development partners, CBT GSP, and engaged on specific areas where they could help us. At the takeoff stage, as we worked on our internal administrative systems to be able to effectively do this work. On the experiences one, we've realized that it's quite important to work as much as you can to put in place proper institutional arrangements to be able to get you the information you need for this work. Two, you need a working national reporting system that both the hardware part of it, proper systems. Kenya is a devolved governance system of 47 subnational governments, and there are sectors that are purely devolved to the subnational level, and you need activity data from those local governments as well. Three, you need to have a framework for continued capacity building for your national experts. And we learned that sector experts who work on these issues on a daily basis are easier to empower in the context of the ETF than building the capacity of people who have not worked on the subject matters that are being reported, both in the inventory and NDC tracking. Four, we realized that it is important for the inventory work and the NDC tracking work to be done by the same institution. If they are done by the different government departments, then it gets very complicated midway on how to get information to facilitate NDC tracking. And then finally, it is important to have a coordinated support provider community. The work of the CGE is cut out for it, and it is the one place that you can do an email and they link you up with any support provider that can help you if they can't help you, even though they need to be able to have the resources to facilitate a few things, including technical materials. Two, it is important for countries, developing countries especially, within the donor community to engage on ways in which the proper policies, legal and institutional frameworks can be put in place, and also find ways of working with them, especially on the capacity building, the continuous capacity building of experts, because the resources we get from the GEF are not adequate to be able to do all these things within the time frame required to deliver the reports that we are expected to deliver. And finally, that even though the CBIT is modeled to support capacity building, we still have a lot of work to do to streamline its processes in a way that is consistent with enabling activities so that we have adequate resources to facilitate the implementation of our different capacity building and improvement plans so that our subsequent BTRs demonstrate a continuous improvement in information and tiers of reporting across the different sectors of the inventory. And most importantly, that for a developing country like Kenya, we can't afford not to report adaptation because every mitigation action is in the context of sustainable development and efforts to eradicate poverty. And therefore, we have to ensure that the institutional arrangement that we have in place is able to consistently provide information on the resilience component of our NDC, including on support needed and received. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frederick. And now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Amjad Abdullah, Director General, Climate Change Department and Head of the Delegation of the Maldives. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. I think you have a presentation, right? I did share the presentation. Do you have it? Or if not, I can even speak.
Paloma, is there a presentation for Maldives? No, sorry, we didn't receive one.
That's okay. Thank you very much. Indeed, again, thank you very much. Again, from our perspective, I think the Enhanced Transparency Framework is one of the vehicles that ensures that, a rigorous checks and balances are there. That was a core when we were developing the Paris Agreement. And I see that it is working perfectly well. And again, like Fred said, I think we were also one of the very first countries who were able to submit the BTR in 2024 on time. I think we did submit on 16th November. The process is somewhat quite similar to what Kenya has just presented. I think the BTR process obviously established a clear picture and perspective of our emissions profile, NDC progress, both on mitigation and adaptation efforts, and of course the support needed and received. Nothing new, as what our colleague from Kenya said, some of the challenges. Of course, it was quite challenging. Again, we used always, regardless of whether small or big, as it relates to reporting, it requires kind of similar amount of numbers of experts that to produce these kind of rigorous and comprehensive analysis. It was quite rather short report, compilation, validation timeline, but capacity constraint, again, is fundamental. We continues to have capacity constraint. The need for continuous capacity building is essential, and we also recognize the work of ICAT as well on capacity building. Data collection, we have established data collection system, but again, sometimes if there are new entries, then it's quite rather challenging to get an appropriate time and the needed capacity and the people. Of course, coordination across agencies, again, I think you all face similar challenges because the sustaining of the builded capacity, is a challenge, ongoing challenge. Likewise, Kenya, we learn a lot of lessons. Periodic and timely support is essential for a sustainable and structured approach to reporting. Importance of continuous capacity building, again, orientation of team members on what it entails in the Enhanced Transparency Framework and tools, and understanding of the MPGs, establishing a long-term ETF reporting team is essential. We don't have a lot of people, as I said. I think regardless of whether you're small or big, we still have, multiple challenges. We have rather a small team who does a number of other things, among others, including the reporting and day-to-day. And you can, I'm sure you all are public servants, the kind of challenges that you face daily. Again, how to improve reporting, of course, develop regulations governing GHG inventory and mitigation data collections, climate financing, tracking, and carbon markets. I think climate financing track is quite rather challenging because I know that I was in the exercise with the budget taking with climate change. What entails on climate financing and development finance. So it's rather challenging when we did the exercise with the Ministry of Treasury. So that was one thing, what portion of that is related to, you can always relate to climate. So it was something rather difficult to tag. The equip experts with tools and training to meet enhanced transparency frameworks. That requirement is also somewhat challenging. Strengthen institutional arrangements and capacity within the relevant institutions and line ministries to improve data collection and reporting. Because it is, again, one of the challenges. The right data collection and reporting and analytical work. Maintaining GHG and DC tracking guidelines to preserve institutional memory and, of course, ensure continuity, and strengthening climate finance tracking with a clear breakdown across mitigation, adaptation, and loss and damage as well. One of the things that we are continuously facing is the implementing entities. I say this because, again, I recall that the JEF Council just concluded, and we see equally diminishing resources for the climate focal area. And this is really going to hamper. And I wonder how that is going to take care of the future reporting. Because GCF has a focal area, JEF has a focal area on climate. If we are equally seeing that, we wanted to strengthen and enhance the transparency framework, at the same time, we've seen the reduction of the resources that needed most countries. That worries to me. And the rigid procedure within the JEF implementing entities is somewhat, again, I wanted to highlight, because that really slows down the whole process, really. There are, one thing that I also wanted to highlight, and of course be very candid here, is that we're equally seeing within these institutions, not within the national governments, you don't have the right capacity. And that worries to me. I face these challenges daily. I have to call and then, pick the phone and call the big shots. It's rather cumbersome. It's not easy. And it's also very uncomfortable, because there are people whom they recruit which does not fit for those. So that to me frustrates, really. And I thought, this is some of the lessons that we learned. No means finger pointing or criticizing, but this is really going to really enhance, improve. If you also have the right people who are working in these agencies, if you have the wrong people, it can really derail and slow down. And I can tell a number of examples, but I know that given the limited time, so I'll just stop here and look forward to engage. And we've just embarked on the BTR2. We are hoping to finalize end of this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Amjad. And now I will give the floor to Mr. Dimitrios Tsepgolis, the EU lead negotiator to the UNFCCC. You have the floor.
Thank you for this opportunity. And it's always hard to come after Amjad presenting all the challenges, but also the great steps that we have made in this process. And I would like to offer you also the European Union's perspective. But before starting, I would like to really thank the co-presidencies for taking this initiative and holding this high-level dialogue on transparency, because we really believe that this is crucial for not only boosting the implementation of the enhanced transparency framework and the implementation of the Paris Agreement, but also for sustaining the momentum now that we have to submit our next round of BTRs. So let me say something that we're always saying, but we have to say it to ourselves and remind it to ourselves all the time, that the enhanced transparency framework is the bedrock of the Paris Agreement. It
it is the one thing that helps to build confidence for all of us and trust among us. And that doesn't work only at the international level, but also it works at the national level. Because at the international level, we come here, we collectively assess our progress, we look at our individual progress as well, and in that way, we also feed to the other big part of the Paris Agreement implementation, the global stocktake, the way that we are ratcheting our ambition. But also it helps at the national level because it helps us to have a dialogue with our people in our jurisdictions. It helps to have a public debate when it comes to how our climate policies are bringing impacts and positive impacts to our societies, but also it helps to provide signals to our stakeholders for taking climate action. So let's look at where we are standing now. In the first round of the Enhanced Transparency Framework, we had more than 100 parties, many more actually submitting their first BTRs. And this is a great achievement, considering from where we were, from which system we were coming from under the UNFCCC. And now we are preparing our next round, and at least from the European Union side and our 27 member states, I can reassure you that we are moving ahead with the preparation of the second BTR. So we expect that this second round will be an improvement to the first round. And of course, we know that we have faced challenges. Previous speakers spoke about these challenges, and we are facing challenges as well in the EU. I mean, after all these 20 years, 30 years of reporting, we see that every time we are learning something new. But definitely, we want to continue working with our partners and particularly with the developing countries to support them to present better BTRs in every round. And that's why we welcome the fact that we have put all these instruments in place and all these institutions that provide this kind of support, like the GEF, the UN agencies, the CGE, the ICAT, the PATPA, the NDC partnership, just to name a few. But we have to remember, we should not hold our submissions back in an effort to make our submissions better. I think that we need to keep on submitting because this is an iterative process. This is a process of continuous improvement. So we have to keep on completing this cycle, the reporting, the review. We're going to have the FMCP now, and in every session, and in this way to lay the ground for the next BTRs. So we can build on this work, we can learn, and we can improve strategically over time. Let me also remind that we have to bring all the submissions together under the BTR synthesis report, because in that way it can inform us where we are standing and how we are progressing on adaptation and support. All the consideration of the findings of the BTR synthesis report will help us to identify actions to overcome our challenges, to refine the support that we are providing to developing countries, and speed up collective climate action. Let me speak a bit on our own experience, on reporting our climate policies, but also the revisions of our policies and how we are increasing our ambition. We have identified some common elements for the continuous improvement that we see through this transparency framework. These include the governance regime that we are building for the reporting. So we need strong governance, and we have seen that by enshrining it to domestic laws, we manage to have this continuous improvement. We have to put in place effective data and institutional arrangements. These are key. And we need to have particular points in this process with officials that have clear formalized roles and responsibilities. Of course, we need to continue building their capacity, so we need to continue with the trainings of our experts in this work. And we need to ensure that we have close collaboration between the data providers and our experts. And finally, we need to have our transparency systems in our jurisdictions designed to guide accountability towards our internal stakeholders. So, with that also, I would like to remind that we have the technical expert review process, and we need to continue utilizing the opportunities that this process is offering us, because in this way we can support the quality improvements that we need in our national capacities. So, we are at the point that now we are moving with the second cycle, and we have to recall that we have taken a decision that we have to review and revise our MPGs by the year 2028, by CMA 33. By COP33. So we believe that this process needs to start this year. It needs to start by the COP31, because we have a lot of work to do. We have to agree on a roadmap and milestones that will ensure this timely revision. And we suggest to start the work by drawing from the experience that we have learned so far. From that, we could start to consider possible improvements to the MPGs. So let me conclude by thanking you for this opportunity to highlight the importance of accelerating the implementation of the transparency framework and the submissions of the BTRs. We look forward to learning from each other today. And the EU, our 27 member states, we will continue to lead by example through our policies, our reporting, our bilateral support, and the capacity building that we dedicate to the developing countries. And, of course, our commitment to our collective goals, to the UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for sharing your experiences with us. And now is the time for the audience to also share your views and on taking stock of the progress on the implementation on the enhanced transparency framework. You can identify challenges and opportunities, reflect on how your experiences can inform the upcoming review of the modalities, procedures, and guidance of the ETF that is mandated by 2028. We ask you, because we are many, and we would like to hear from all of you, to limit your interventions to no more than 3 minutes, so that we have enough time for everybody to speak today. I will take the interventions in the order of the flags being raised, though this is a big room, so bear with me. I will try to call all of you in that order. We'll hear from parties first, and if time permits, we'll also give the floor to observers. We'll have around 20 minutes for this dialogue, or a little bit more. And with that, and also I would like to tell you that you can also submit your interventions in writing to the Secretariat, and we will be able to share that on the website of the event. Also, the opening remarks from Turkey in English will be shared there in case you arrive and you didn't have your headphones. You will be able to see that in our website. And with that, I will see your flags and I will start giving the floor. Yes, first, I would like to give the floor to Andorra.
Thank you very much for the very interesting panel and the remarks. So Andorra welcomes this opportunity to reflect on the implementation of the ETF on the road ahead of BTR2. So we're gearing up, and we hope to be early with the deadlines. That's the first good news. I could say that as a small mountain country, our contribution to global emission is very limited, but our vulnerability to climate change is really significant. For small countries like Andorra, the Paris Agreement and the transparency framework are really essential tools to build trust on the global arena. This is why Andorra has really consistently sought to lead by example. We were the first party to submit the BTR report in 2023 in October, ahead of the deadline. Very proud of that achievement, because we're a small country with small resources. so needs to be said. And we were also one of the first countries to complete the full ETF cycle back in May 2024. So our experience really confirms that transparency is more than a reporting requirement, that is really strengthening our institution, as I said, our credibility, improving the data, and supporting the policy making, and this is quite crucial. We also want to say that transparency is an important political value. We often say that it allows to be more exigent with the other parties, so we invite everybody to the work. And that countries that are highly vulnerable to climate change really depend on a rule-based system where all parties can also demonstrate the progress they're making, and this is really contributing to the collective ambition. In this spirit, Andorra is among the first 10 countries to have submitted its NDC 3.0 and committing to reduce emissions by 63% by 2035. So as we look towards to the BTR2 and the review of the MPJs, we encourage all parties to maintain momentum and continue strengthening the systems. As a robust and inclusive transparency framework will remain one of the strongest foundations of the Paris Agreement. Thank you very much.
Now I would like to give the floor to New Zealand.
Thank you. The Enhanced Transparency Framework is the means by which we build trust and confidence in the implementation of the agreement. We have seen strong progress by parties in submitting their first BTRs, and in particular, we note the significant number of submissions by SIDS and LDCs who have discretion in when they submit these reports. For parties that have mandatory deadlines to submit this information, we have seen a steady increase. And we urge those few who are required and who have not yet submitted their 2024 BTRs to do so. This is vital to transparency, trust, and confidence. It's important that momentum continues. The next round of BTRs is due this year, and we hope to see all parties required to do so to submit their second BTRs this year, and we welcome the efforts of parties and the presidencies to achieve this. This would be an important milestone in the operationalization of the Paris Agreement. It would strengthen trust and confidence in implementation, provide evidence for domestic policy making, for accessing financial resources, and for the second global stocktake of our collective progress towards the goals of the Paris Agreement. We encourage parties to make use of the support and capacity building available for reporting. New Zealand has long participated in transparency arrangements, leading to continuous improvement over time. Our ability to deliver policy and outcomes has been strengthened through this continuous improvement. I want to make three final points. Reporting is a process of continuous improvement and takes time. Our reporting and our process now looks very different to the first time we did it in 1994. Secondly, engaging with stakeholders and contributors can be just as important as having data systems in place. It's through these conversations that people understand the importance of the BTR, their contributions to it, and what can be learned from the BTRs in supporting their policy. Finally, we look forward to taking our next steps and to participating in our first FMCP under the Paris Agreement at this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor to the Environmental Integrity Group.
Thank you, dear moderator. Thanks a lot to the marvelous panel and their experience. I speak on behalf of EIG. We're grateful to witness the full operationalization of the Enhanced Transparency Framework under Article 13 of the Paris Agreement. The collective knowledge accumulated by parties throughout the preparation of their biennial transparency reports reflects not only shared experiences, but also intensive capacity building efforts and the steady expansion of national expert pools across all regions. International partners and global initiatives continue to play a vital role in supporting the developing countries as they strengthen their national capacities for the effective implementation of the ETF. Through targeted technical assistance, sustained capacity building, and long-term institutional support, these programs are helping countries establish the systems, expertise, and coordination mechanisms required to operationalize the ETF at the national level. We're simultaneously benefited from the technical review process and from the opportunity to present our progress towards NDC implementation during the FMCP sessions. These exchanges with partners and colleagues continue to strengthen our collective understanding and reinforce the cooperative spirit at the heart of the ETF. For EIG, the operationalization of the Baku Transparency Platform has been instrumental in guiding us through the first BTR cycle. It has provided structure, clarity, and common reference point at the moment when many countries were navigating this process for this essential time. At the same time, we must acknowledge the challenges we face in maintaining the momentum required to keep BTR cycles truly sequential and envisioned by parties. Sustaining their rhythm demands continued support, predictable resources, and strong institutional arrangements. In this context, we extend our sincere wishes to Turkey and Australia at its advances towards this important milestone. We hope that by the end of this year, we will see as many BTR submissions as possible, further enriching the global pool of expertise and strengthen the collaborative implementation of the Paris Agreement. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor to Singapore.
Thank you. So I thank the presidencies for convening this important dialogue. So in this era of the implementation of the Paris Agreement, transparency has become even more critical to hold us collectively accountable to our climate commitments and also to one another. So Singapore would like to make 3 points. First, on the importance of the enhanced transparency framework. We strongly support the ETF as a primary tool to ensure transparency in implementing the agreement. It is the mechanism through which each party demonstrates that it is honoring its climate commitments, not just in words, but in action. And without reliable, comparable data on emissions and progress, we cannot assess where we stand collectively, nor can we identify where additional action is most urgently needed. The ETF is also essential for maintaining multilateral trust and unlocking critical mitigation options that depend on international cooperation, including through carbon markets. So we're therefore encouraged that more than 100 parties have submitted their first BTRs in informing the first BTR synthesis. And that gives us, for the first time, comprehensive information to feed into processes like the global stocktake. Second, on our national experience, compiling our first BTR has strengthened our institutional capacity and technical expertise in managing climate data. We're grateful for the UNFCCC Secretariat and the Technical Expert Review Team for the strong support during the TER of our first BTR in May last year. The facilitative, non-intrusive, non-punitive manner of the process, coupled with country-specific assessments, provided a conducive environment and useful resources for us to continue improving the quality of our climate reports. We're also very glad to be one of the parties who will be presenting at the upcoming FMCP sessions this week, and we're actively preparing our second BTR, working on our areas of improvement. And lastly, on international collaboration and capacity building, Singapore recognizes that the ETF's success ultimately depends on all parties having adequate capacity to implement it. We're committed to supporting fellow parties in enhancing their climate transparency, including through the Singapore Cooperation Program, and in partnership with the Secretariat and international partners. So to conclude, the ETF provides the foundation of accountability essential for achieving our collective climate goals. our experience demonstrates that while implementation requires investment, it delivers substantial benefits, and we strongly encourage all parties to participate fully in the ETF process and submit their BTRs to deliver on the transparency mechanisms upon which our climate ambitions depend. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor to Malawi.
Good afternoon, colleagues and delegates. Malawi, speaking on behalf of the LDC group. I would like to thank the Secretariat, the Baku Global Climate Transparency Platform, and the COP30, as well as the COP31 Presidencies for organizing this event. I also thank the esteemed panel in front of us, made from members from Kenya, Maldives, as well as the EU, for sharing the useful experiences and insights. But at the onset, in this session, I would also like to thank all the support providers who really worked very hard with the Secretariat in making sure that parties submit their first BTRs and undergo the subsequent processes. So this conversation here is a very timely moment as countries are working actively on their BTR2, and substantive experience is now available from the review process, where we understand some of the parties have already undergone technical expert reviews. So I'd like to welcome this opportunity to take stock of progress in the ETF implementation and reflect on the challenges, needs, and gaps. As others have mentioned, transparency is indeed the backbone of Paris Agreement. And for the LDC group, we consider transparency not an end in itself, but a means to support climate action, equitable access to support, and the progressive improvement of national systems. Within the LDC group, you might wish to know that 15 LDCs have already submitted their first BTRs, and some are already preparing for the second. However, almost 2/3, that's around 26 LDCs, are lagging behind. So LDC's experiences in preparing their first BTR confirm that the ETF, while representing a significant step forward in climate transparency, presents substantial capacity gaps and barriers for our countries. So we highlighted from yesterday's session some of the challenges which LDCs are facing, but also we appreciate the panel here which highlighted some of the best practices, including having legally mandated institutional arrangements, qualified technical staffs, having systems in place which most of the LDCs doesn't have. And other thematic challenges include those related to tracking progress in LDC implementation, as well as on support needed and received. So we find that these challenges persist in the LDCs, and data collection remains fragmented and requires more technical expertise. So the evidence from the LDC's first BTR is clear. Additional and more sustained efforts are required to address these needs, and we progress into the next and future rounds of BTRs. We need to build robust institutional capacities, strengthening data collection systems, ensuring that we have a pool of trained experts, and ensure that we have established effective monitoring frameworks. And indeed, this requires predictable and long-term financial and technical resources. I would like to highlight our recent experience with the LDC's centralized group review of BTRs from Burkina Faso, Malawi, Niger, and Rwanda. This was a valuable opportunity to learn from one another and share experiences and practices, and it also helped to deepen understanding of challenges and needs across different country contexts. The process included practical hands-on training on ETF reporting tools covering GSG inventories, NDC tracking, and reporting on support needed and received, where experts from the Secretariat provided that hands-on training. The integration of the review process and capacity building proved innovative and effective for us, and is an experience worth replicating with other LDCs yet to undergo the review process, even other parties. So the LDC group is ready to share more experience on that for replication. So as we enter into the MPG review process and look ahead of 2028, the group believes that some adjustments are necessary, and we are willing to engage For instance, accurate and coherent reporting on financial support requires a clear and agreed definition of what counts as climate finance. But also recently, we have adopted the 59 BEREM indicators, which requires guidance and clarity for parties on how to integrate them into transparency reporting. I'd like to thank the organizers for this engagement. We look forward to engage further in the upcoming high-level events to maintain political momentum and support transparency implementation and bidder submission across LDCs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor to the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chairs. The United Kingdom welcomes this timely discussion. We are at an important moment in the implementation of the Enhanced Transparency Framework of the Paris Agreement as we complete a first cycle and embark on the next, with many FMCPs happening here in Bonn, including the UK's, and more to come at COP31 and second BTRs due in December this year. For those who have yet to undergo their TER or FMCP, we encourage you to work with the Secretariat to undertake those processes as soon as possible. We have seen strong progress to date. The submission of first BTRs demonstrates that parties are taking their transparency commitments seriously, and the review processes are already delivering, enhancing trust, strengthening accountability, and informing better climate policy decisions. The key task now is to sustain and build on this momentum. We encourage all parties to continue prioritising timely BTR submissions and to invest in strengthening national transparency systems. Maintaining a regular and predictable reporting rhythm will be essential to ensure that the ETF fully delivers on its purpose. Transparency, as we hear repeatedly and have heard again today, is the backbone of the Paris Agreement. We also recognise that sustained progress depends on effective and accessible support. We welcome the continued efforts of partners, including the consultative group of experts and implementing agencies, in supporting developing countries to prepare their reports. In this context, it is particularly encouraging that the funding available under the GEF8 funds has now been fully allocated. This demonstrates the value of these support mechanisms and the benefit of maintaining flexibility within support arrangements, including where unclaimed resources can be identified and redirected efficiently to meet parties' needs. Recognising the importance of continued support for transparency in the context of the GEF replenishment, which is underway and yet to be finalised, the members of the Global Environment Facility agreed to safeguard dedicated resources for reporting-related support, resulting in an increased share of the climate change focal area being allocated to the Capacity Building Initiative for Transparency. Colleagues, as we look forward, we must begin to reflect on the upcoming review of the modalities, procedures and guidelines. This review will be a critical moment for the transparency framework. It offers an opportunity to take stock of our collective experience of reporting under the Paris Agreement and consider how the system can evolve to remain effective, efficient, and fit for purpose. At the same time, we should approach this process with care. It will be important to take a coordinated approach, considering the MPGs as a whole and ensuring that discussions are grounded in practical experience from implementation. We look forward to working constructively together within the transparency process, ensuring that the review is coherent, inclusive, and informed by evidence. In closing, the message from this dialogue should be clear. We are making progress, but we must keep going. By sustaining momentum on BTR submissions and the review processes, maintaining strong support, and approaching the MPG review in a coordinated and thoughtful way, we can ensure that the Enhanced Transparency Framework continues to deliver for all parties. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have many speakers more, and I will read. We will have Japan, Saudi Arabia, Kazakhstan, Bolivia, Canada, Czechia, and Spain, but we will be closing the list so that you will have some time to enjoy the offer lunch that we will have today. And with that, I would like to give the floor to Japan. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. And first, the preparation of BTR1 was the first experience for all parties, and while there were challenges, as of last month, May this year, 133 countries have submitted. So this demonstrates our shared recognition of the importance of BTR and indicate that the ETF under the Paris Agreement is functioning. To maintain and accelerate this momentum, parties that have not yet submitted their BTR, first BTR, are encouraged to do so. And while those who have already submitted the first BTR are encouraged to submit second BTR by the end of this year. And Japan would like to share 3 key lessons learned from the preparation of the first BTR. And first, under the ETF, transparency is strengthened by improving the quality of BTRs through successive submissions every 2 years. So therefore, continuous effort by the party to enhance the quality of their reporting are essential. Second, it is important to promote the sharing of practical solutions and good practices. So, for example, Japan has long operationalized a framework, including relevant ministries and also other entities for transparency reporting and maintain close coordination among ourselves. Such institutional arrangement from a solid foundation for the preparation of form a solid foundation for the preparation of the BTRs. Third, Japan has been providing support, including the workshop on greenhouse gas inventories in Asia, BTR workshops, bilateral assistance for BTR preparation, and supporting utilizing observation data of greenhouse gas observation satellite, or GOSAT. So Japan is committed to further promote the enhancement of transparency through these initiatives. And lastly, on MPG review by 2028, it is important to ensure the continued biennial submission of BTR while recognizing that increased administrative demands may affect timely submissions. So consideration should also be given to the diverse capacity among parties, so including those still preparing their BTRs, first BTRs. So to review, that review should therefore focus on critical and essential elements for update, because this MPG revision are not a one-off process, and we, as I said, that a continuous improvement among ourselves as well as the system would be crucial for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor to Saudi Arabia.
Thank you very much. And we thank the COP presidencies for allowing us to have this opportunity to have this very important dialogue. Firstly, we welcome this opportunity to exchange views and experiences on the implementation of the Enhanced Transparency Framework. As parties continue to operationalize the ETF and prepare subsequent BTRs, it is important that our discussions remain grounded in the practical experiences of the implementation. This includes challenges, capacity constraints, and support needs encountered by developing country parties. Support for the ETF remains of critical importance. Developing country parties require sustained, adequate, predictable, and accessible financial, technical, and capacity-building support to effectively implement the ETF, particularly given the enhanced scope and complexity of its requirements and the need of the enhanced national systems, infrastructures to enable reporting, which many are still in the process of submitting their first BTR. We further underscore that the flexibilities available to developing country parties are integral elements of the ETF and have been central to its implementation. Article 13 of the Paris Agreement and the MPGs recognize differing national circumstances, capacities, and starting points. These provisions, together with the provision of support, are integral to allowing broad participation in the ETF. We note that despite parties already commencing preparation of BTR2, the first ETF cycle has not been completed yet and has faced many delays. While BTR2 submissions are due by the end of 2026, Some parties will only undergo their BTR1 technical expert review in 2027. As a result, parties will submit their second BTR without having had the opportunity or the benefit of a review process and learning lessons within implementing their second BTR. Against this backdrop, calls to revise the MPGs as early as this COP are difficult to understand. Parties have neither completed the full cycle nor fully implemented the existing modalities. Seeking to reopen discussions on the framework before its implementation has run its course or even completed the cycle is not in alignment with the decision we all agreed to within the existing MPGs and risks undermining the carefully negotiated balance of the MPGs and prejudges lessons that have yet to be learned in their implementation. Finally, we emphasize that support plays a critical role in enabling the effective implementation and sustain an adequate, predictable, and accessible financing and technical and capacity building support will remain essential for developing country parties to meet both their Convention and Paris Agreement requirements. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor to Kazakhstan.
Thank you very much, distinguished delegates and colleagues. Kazakhstan is pleased to be among the first 9 countries to have submitted its first biennial transparency report at COP29 in Baku. This is not only a procedural milestone, it reflects Kazakhstan's sustained political commitment to transparency as a cornerstone of our climate action. An important part of BTR journey was in-country technical expert review, which took place in the spring of 2025. The review offered valuable technical support across key areas, from greenhouse gas inventory to emission projections and NDC monitoring frameworks. Beyond assessment, validating the credibility of our reported information, it helped us identify gaps and capacity building needs that will directly guide our work on BTR2 preparation. Building on this technical foundation, Kazakhstan successfully passed the FMCP session at COP30 in Belém. Participation in that process allowed us to demonstrate the progress achieved, articulate the challenges we face, and share the efforts undertaken and lessons learned. Each BTR, like each NDC, is not an isolated reporting exercise. It is a step forward building a more mature and resilient national climate policy system. The BTR is not just a report, it is a periodic assessment of how far we have progressed from ambition to implementation. Our first BTR showed that our processes were still taking shape, while the second BTR should demonstrate how a country moves from describing actions to managing them, from data to investment decisions. With every BTR reporting cycle, Kazakhstan becomes a stronger and more reliable partner on the international climate stage, and we are ready to share this experience with other parties. Kazakhstan remains committed to this shared journey of openness, learning, and collective progress. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor to Bolivia.
Thank you, co-facilitators. Bolivia submitted its first biennial transparency report in December 2024. We welcome this dialogue as an opportunity to reflect on what boosting ETF implementation truly requires for us, and the answer to begin with data quality. In South America, the dominant emission sources are forest and agriculture. The Amazon biome is shared across multiple parties, yet the emission factors we rely on do not adequately reflect its specific ecological conditions. This is not a minor technical gap. It directly limits the credibility of our inventories on our NDC tracking. Bolivia therefore calls for 3 things. The first of all, dedicated to support for the development of region-specific emission factors for the Amazon biome, including shared platforms for methodology and data exchange among Amazonian countries. Second, the adoption of a continuous improvement principle within the ETF, one that tracks measurable progress in data quality across successive BTR cycles, not just in the report presentation. Third, the deliberate orientation of CBIT and Article 13 resources toward upstream investments in measurement, capacity monitoring networks, and subnational data systems. Without quality information of source, no reporting instruction can deliver credible transparency. Also, in the dimension that Bolivia urged that the technical expert review of BTR1 submissions be conducted in a timely manner. The technical expert review is the primary mechanism through which parties receive structured feedback on their transparency reports, and that feedback is an indispensable input for BTR2 preparation. A delayed review means countries begin the next cycle without knowing whether their methodological choices were adequate. This undermines continuous improvement and weakens the information base for the second global stocktake. Adequate human and financial resources must be mobilized to ensure technical expert review process keeps pace with the growing volume of submissions. Transparency is a foundation for ambition and trust, but only if the data on which it rests is credible. Bolivia stands ready to share its BTR1 experience with the intention of mutual learning and continuous improvement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor to Canada.
Thank you, and many thanks to the panelists and other parties who have spoken during this dialogue. The Enhanced Transparency Framework, as others have noted, is at the heart of the Paris Agreement, and Canada very much appreciates the sharing of experiences and best practices in implementing the ETF, as well as information on challenges. As some countries work to finalize first BTRs and others their second BTRs, lessons learned are very informative for all of us. The experiences shared here and at the World Cafe workshop yesterday really bring home the value of exchanging on these practical aspects of ETF implementation. And these exchanges aren't limited to multilateral settings. For example, during our BT1 preparations, Canada hosted reporting experts from South Africa to meet with our own experts on a peer-to-peer exchange on reporting experiences. And while we had different challenges and different contexts, we learned a lot from each other. Transparency also facilitates our ability to unlock the economic opportunities of a low-carbon economy. When we can demonstrate the effectiveness of data and evidence-based policy, this really helps in terms of mobilizing resources from international support providers, from the private sector. It also helps to get broader buy-in on climate policies by demonstrating results. Recognizing the different starting points of parties as we work on our BTRs, Canada encourages parties who have not submitted their BTRs to do so. We must also consider how best to initiate the review of the modalities, procedures, and guidelines to optimize future transparency reporting. In order to conclude the MPG review in 2028 as mandated, Canada would support a decision at COP31 to substantively begin the review of the MPGs next year at SB 66. This would enable parties to decide the review process modalities this year and begin the technical work next year. We welcome other parties' views on the MPG review launch. Lastly, we look forward to participating in the FMCP this week and to submitting Canada's second BTR by the end of this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor to Czechia.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the Czech Republic, I'm delighted to share a few experiences from our PTR preparation process and technical capacity provided. Czech Republic submitted its first PTR on time and is currently preparing for the second PTR. And I wish to emphasize the benefits from the ICA process for the Czech Republic. Reviews have accelerated improvements and ensured robust monitoring and reporting system, but it is a continuous improvement process. I'm happy to recognize familiar faces here from the UN review team that reviewed our PTR in March. Also, in Czech Republic, Czech Hydrometeorological Institute has provided technical capacity building for developing countries already 4 years under the KEF UNDP organized CPIT program, and we will continue providing support. I wish to express my gratitude to KEF and UNDP for bringing providers and receivers together. Lastly, international cooperation is the way forward. Learning from each other and sharing best practices enables climate action to reduce emissions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor to Spain.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank the Secretariat and the Presidencies for this initiative and for giving us the space to highlight the importance of the Enhanced Transparency Framework, a framework under the Paris Agreement that for us is quite clear that it's not just a technical requirement. It is the backbone of credible climate action as it builds trust and provides the evidence needed to raise ambition. From our experience, we can confirm that the process of elaborating the BTR and the technical expert review and also the multilateral consideration of progress have strengthened our national system. Of course, the process has been both a challenge, but above all, an opportunity to assess where we stand, reflect on the progress made towards our targets, our NDCs, our commitments, and most importantly, it has helped us to identify areas where further improvement was needed. In this regard, we can say that the ATF goes far beyond a reporting or a transparency exercise. It serves as a key tool for tracking progress, informing future ambition, and strengthening policy making by ensuring that the decisions are based on robust data, evidence, and a clear understanding of the implementation progress. I'm sure that we will have more opportunities to share more of our experience, but I would like just to say that the main lesson is simple. Transparency drives ambition, and it helps us design better policies, strengthen cooperation, and ensures that climate action is credible and effective. And finally, just a small last remark. As you all are aware, the revision of the MPGs guiding all these processes are approaching, and given the importance of this exercise that I think that we all share, I think that it will be very helpful and very valuable to begin this discussion as soon as possible, ideally by next COP. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all for sharing your experiences with us, and also keep in mind that if you want to send your statement, or if you were not able to do it, you can send it to the Secretariat and we will post it on the web. With that, I would like to thank the panelists and also all of you, and maybe give us yourself a very big round of applause. And with that, I would like to ask our new panelists to come to the podium for our last panel before lunch. So we heard from parties, and now we will hear from our support providers. And I think, first of all, we will have the intervention of the CGE chair. The CGE is the main body under the UN climate change that provides technical assistance and support to developing country parties in fulfilling their reporting requirements under the Convention and the Paris Agreement. I would like to invite Mrs. Camille Salazar, the chair of the CGE. You have the floor, Camille.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, colleagues, it is an honor to take part in this high-level dialogue alongside such distinguished colleagues. We gather today at a pivotal moment. The Enhanced Transparency Framework is in full implementation mode. More than 2/3 of the parties submitted their biennial transparency reports, and many are actively participating in technical expert reviews and facilitative multilateral consideration of progress. Through these processes under the ETF, parties are gaining valuable experience and actionable insights that strengthen climate action, improve investment flows, and identify the remaining gaps and support needs. At this outset, as chair of the CGE, I would like to take this opportunity to share a brief update on the consultative group of experts, the cornerstone in provision of support to developing countries in implementing the ETF. The decisions adopted at COP30 and CMA7 in Belém marked a significant milestone for the CGE. Parties recognized the achievements and made the CGE a permanent body, serving both the Convention and the Paris Agreement. This renewed mandate is a strong signal of trust in the CGE's role, and we take that responsibility seriously. Following Belém, the CGE developed its work program for 2026 to 2029 and the work plan for 2026, setting the strategic direction for the years ahead. The work program focuses on 3 core work streams: supporting and facilitating ETF implementation by developing countries, stock-taking, capacity-building gaps and needs, and strengthening engagement with key stakeholders and partners. The CGE is already delivering. During the first half of 2026, we have convened an informal forum to exchange experiences and lessons learned from the first ETS cycle. Organized the first of 3 planned regional training workshops responding to priority needs identified by region countries. Produced targeted knowledge products and are working closely with partners to amplify these efforts. I would like to express my appreciation to parties that have provided financial contributions to the work of the CGE, and also underline that continued support is essential to support the full implementation of our mandate. As we look ahead to second BTRs and the upcoming MPG's review, the lessons emerging from the first ETF cycle are of critical value. A few key lessons I wish to highlight are: political buy-in at the national level is essential for ETF implementation, and predictable and targeted support is critical for countries to move towards sustainable transparency arrangements and continuous improvements over time. CGE is fully committed to delivering its mandate, with support from the Secretariat and in close collaboration with its partners, with an aim to enable transparency, a driver of stronger climate action and support. As we navigate ETF implementation, let us remember that transparency is a strategic tool and a collective effort that turns our shared data into decisive action, unlocks essential investments, and keeps the promise of the Paris Agreement alive. The CGE remains firmly committed to advancing that vision, and I would like to thank all members of the CGE for their hard work and dedication. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I think we will come into our next segment, in which we will provide space for our partner organizations so that they share their experiences working with developing countries on the implementation of the ETF, to highlight what has worked well and what are the challenges that they have encountered and the lessons learned in providing financial and also capacity building and technical support in a timely and sustainable manner. With that, also I will ask you if you can limit your interventions to 4 minutes, and I will start giving the floor to Mrs. Ruth Sugman Dokoto. She's the Deputy Director, Climate Change Division at UNEP. Ruth, you have the floor.
Can you hear me? Yeah. I have a presentation, Veronica.
Yes, it's there.
Okay, fantastic. So first of all, thank you very much for allowing us to be here with you. Together in this table, you have most of the agencies that support the transparency framework, so it's really an honor for me to be here with you and with my colleagues and with ICAT and of course with the Jeff as well, so that's great. Thank you for organizing yesterday, which was actually very useful, and this today's discussion. So next slide, please. So in UNEP, we support many countries to do their BTRs, the biennial transparency reports. but also the Capacity Building Initiative for Transparency. We also host the Global Support Program that has integrated what used to be the previous Global Support Program that provided support to the national communications and the BURs. And now we merge the support to the Capacity Building Initiative for Transparency. And so I can see here. And I think in UNEP we believe that this is a troika, let's say, good cycle of support, because the Capacity Building Initiative for Transparency can go deeper in supporting countries on specific sectoral work on enhancing the emissions factor, or even going to tier 3 activity emissions factor, and to really have very good MRV systems, which actually underpin the BTR. The BTR will actually report on the different sectors with the accuracy that probably will come from the more in-depth work of the Capacity Building Initiative for Transparency. And then there is the third leg, which is the global learning, the peer-to-peer exchanges, and all the support that all of us can do, the UNFCCC, ICAT, UNEP, UNDP, FAO, PATPA, everybody. And we also do that through the Global Support Program, which in phase 3, we're going to work together again with the UNDP to provide support to all countries that are working on transparency. And we believe that this actually is a very strong way of addressing many of the issues that have been raised in this discussion today, because you have this one-stop kind of help desk and support that actually is providing guidance, technical materials, tools, etc. And you have the GEF, who actually provides the specific windows of funding that non-Annex 1 countries can tap in to either do their CBIT projects or their BTRs. The next slide, please. This is just to show that in UNEP we have a large portfolio of seeds and LDCs, and we have heard how important it is to have flexibility on the data, on the submission of the BTRs. You will see that we have more than 106 countries being supported, and we have umbrella projects that actually allow a much faster access of resources from the Global Environment Facility. This is just to give you a breath. We massively support Africa and also seeds in the Caribbean and in the Pacific. Next slide, please. So the questions that were posed to us is what has worked well? And I think we put 4 areas that we believe have been working well. One is the country ownership. We believe, and now we have heard that hiring consultants that go back and forth is not the best way forward, and we believe that actually engaging directly with the governments, which is not necessarily easy, because sometimes the transaction to establish bank accounts and to transfer the funds can take time. But I think working with the UN gives the credibility as well, and the fiduciary responsibility to the agencies to do so. And this builds capacity and really pushes for a national leadership at the local level. What we have also heard is that we need a continued flow of funding. So when some of the local experts are hired or are part of the government, you don't want that structure to go away when waiting for the next actually tranche of funding from the Global Environment Facility. And what we have done on the BTR1, which is working now, and hopefully it will work for BTR3, is actually to bundle two projects, the BTR1 and the BTR2, and the national communications in one submission, and then bundle these into one umbrella. So when we get approval for 40 countries to do 2 BTRs plus their national communications. And that allows the predictability of the funding, and we commit not to release funding for the second BTR until the first BTR is submitted. So there is a level of checks and balances as well. And that support and that streamline, we believe works well, because then we save a lot of transaction costs. We have established sub-regional and regional communities of practice to networks where the language is the same and there is peer-to-peer exchanges. And we joined forces with UNDP for the Lusophone as well, and support from PAPTA. And this has been actually working very well because countries can share on their own language, in their own pace, the issues that they have been working with and grappling with. And the innovation part, which the UNFCCC has actually released digital tools to submit the BTRs, and these with the aim to make it much more agile and to have a track record of that. So there is a lot of innovation that is happening, but also countries are establishing national systems and inventories. And for instance, China has a very nice open for everybody database of greenhouse gas inventories they have released. It's fantastic. And there is a lot of innovation. I think they've been supported by UNDP, and there is a lot of innovation happening. So last slide, because I know I have to wrap up. So just to re-emphasize that we believe that this consistency on the funding is a key issue, collaboration, peer learning, and transparency. We heard that transparency is the backbone of the Paris Agreement. It is. And for us to have NDCs that have baselines that are correct, that's the BTR that will provide that. And the baseline of the NDC targets is everything on how we're going to actually reduce emissions. So everything is very tied together. We have on the right side a picture of an innovative kind of learning and review process that has been hosted by Kigali, by Rwanda in Kigali, and countries that joined, and they shared with each other their BTRs, and they have done a kind of a collective review. And this is possible, and we think that this works very well, and this is something maybe we can foster more in terms of innovation. The feedback was very positive, and that's a different way of doing a review, because you know, one country shares with the other the challenges on the review. I have one more slide, which I won't talk, but we can share later. But just on the things that we believe are strategic lessons is aligning the transparency with national policy planning, investing early in a national team for continuity, building a system that can stay with the predictability of the fund, just not one-off reports. And it's very important, and I've already said that this flexibility for seeds and LDCs, because the report is one, the template is the same, it's just the timeline that is different, which makes everything very comparable. And we stand ready with our partners and UNFCCC to continue supporting countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ruth. And just to inform everybody that the presentations will be also available in our event page. And with that, I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Jennifer Baumhol, Head of the Climate Strategies and Policies from UNDP.
Great. Thank you very much, Chair. And let me begin by thanking UNFCCC Secretariat, the COP Presidencies, Together for Transparency, and the Baku Global Climate Transparency Platform for convening this discussion, this very important discussion. And as we've heard from many parties and many experts and partners, there is a lot of progress being made. And the focus now is critical in terms of sustaining this support and this engagement. We talk a lot about the era of implementation. We just heard the action agenda launched by the COP president. And at UNDP, we approach transparency as an intrinsic part of implementation. Through strengthening policymaking, improving access to finance, and delivering more effective NDC implementation, transparency is at the core, as we've heard today. We've integrated our portfolio on transparency into our climate promise, which is our flagship effort to deliver on the Paris Agreement and supporting countries on NDCs. We've supported 90% of countries on NDCs over the last decade, and the climate promise has now been extended across the UN system, coordinating 30 different UN entities at the request of the Secretary General. So as you can see in the slide, thank you, UNDP is quite proud to have supported over 100 countries on transparency specifically through our climate promise. And this includes support from the GEF, as well as the CBIT Global Support Program. We're doing closely with UNEP, as we heard, and bilateral sources of support, including dedicated resources from the government of Belgium. Our support helps countries, as you can see across the bottom here, helps countries to strengthen the capacities, systems, and institutions needed to prepare current and future BTRs. However, this is not done in a silo, and by supporting stronger alignment between BTRs and NDCs and NAPs and other instruments, we also help enhance coherence across the climate planning, implementation, and reporting cycle. There are, of course, still challenges that remain, and you can move to the next slide, thank you, which we've heard from many parties, many colleagues here. Capacity constraints, staff turnover, fragmented data systems, and competing institutional priorities, which do affect implementation. However, we have seen many lessons that we've learned emerging from countries who have successfully addressed these elements and really used and leveraged the transparency process to drive implementation. Some of these are familiar threads that we've heard from Ruth and other colleagues. But one of the most important lessons we've learned in looking at the first BTR preparation is that success really depends on institutionalizing transparency. So this is not just about producing a report. This is really about building durable national systems and capacities. It's about establishing permanent institutional arrangements within countries to support this cyclical process. This also means embedding transparency responsibilities across ministries, so to ensure you have national ownership, integrating this also across the broader climate and development planning process. Next, looking at that support must be more predictable and more long-term, as we've heard, looking at the support through the entire transparency cycle, embedded from the start, and aligning with the various timelines. And experience has also showed the importance of peer learning, regional networks, and targeted technical support, really helping countries to build capacity and confidence. Countries learn best from each other, and particularly those that have recently completed the similar processes, which can help identify where some of the practical solutions are, avoid some of the common mistakes, and adapt lessons to the specific national circumstances. And then finally, which we've also heard, the importance of high-level political commitment to elevate transparency beyond just a reporting obligation to really a national priority that's embedded within the broader climate and development planning. UNDP has been pleased to support the Baku Global Climate Transparency Platform and Together for Transparency and other initiatives that really help to foster this political engagement, peer learning, and collaboration. And we already see the impact of that in terms of elevating the transparency within the conversations here. Of course, partnerships remain at the core of progress as well. We've collaborated with many of the actors sitting here today, Jeff, UNEP, FAO, the UNFCCC Secretariat, CGE, ICAT, PATBA, and others. And all have a really critical role to play within this process, and demonstrating also the value of coordinated support to ensure this successful engagement. We're also pleased to be working closely with UNEP, as we heard, in IPCC on the next phase of the Global Support Program, building on the achievements of the CBIT GSP and further strengthening our coordinated support. So looking ahead to the BTR2 and the review of the MPGs, our challenge is not only to support reporting, but really to sustain the confidence, the capacity, the political commitment that countries have built, and helping us to accelerate in this era of implementation. So UNDP remains fully committed to building on these lessons and working with parties and partners to ensure that no country is left behind as the ETF implementation enters its next phase. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And I would like now to give the floor to Mr. Sava Katam, the climate change specialist in the Global Environmental Facility.
Thank you. And thanks for inviting us to this dialogue, which really helps us to make our support more focused as well as more fit for purpose. I was hearing some of the concerns and some of the acknowledgements during the beginning of the session, And I really want to assure you that we take such comments very seriously. We discuss these comments very extensively within the organization, and we try to accommodate as much as we can within our policies. Some individual comments might not be addressed, or some individual concerns might not be addressed, but collectively, most of the concerns those are raised in such forums, I mean, we try to acknowledge them as much as we can. First slide, please. Very briefly, in terms of the support which JEF is providing, we are providing national level support as well as global level support. Under the national level support, we have the CIBIT, which is the Capacity Building Initiative for Transparency, as well as the support on preparation of the BTRs and the national communications. This is complemented by the global support that we provide through different projects. And one of the prominent projects that we have on the global support is the GSP, as you all know. And the GSP is to provide technical assistance, knowledge sharing, sharing of tools, sharing of expertise across 10 different networks that we have. Next slide, please. This is just an overview of the support, the level of support which JEF is providing under CIBIT as well as under BTRs. Under CIBIT, we are working with almost 105 countries. I mean, we have worked and we are working with 105 countries, which includes 32 LDCs and 27 SIDs. We allocated about 75 million under JEF 8, which is 33% more than what it was allocated under JEF 7. We are trying to maintain the same level in JEF 9 as well, considering the ETF, the entire ETF as a priority for the JEF 9 programming directions. We are increasingly seeing the proposals that we are receiving from different governments as well as globally, that they are moving beyond the foundational capacity building activities towards system enhancements, which includes higher tier methodologies, MRV systems, more focused technical support in terms of the modules, more focused technical support in terms of the CTFs and the reporting tables as well. Under BTR, we are supporting and have supported about 118 countries with 237 biennial transparency reports. This includes 118 BTR, the first BTR report, 84 second BTR, and right now working on 35 third BTR reports. Same under the BTR as well, we allocated about 145 million under JEF 8, which is again 33% more than what it was allocated under JEF 7. We are trying to maintain the same level, considering the entire ETF as a priority under the JEF 9 programming direction for us as well. And I'm pleased to report that nearly 70% of the CIBIT-supported countries have already submitted the BTR, the first BTR. This includes the SIDs and the LDCs as well, which have flexibility in terms of submission of the BTR reports. Next slide, please. In terms of going forward, JEF 7, mainly JEF 8, has helped countries to take the first step in terms of developing the institutional capacity, the technical capacity. In JEF 9, we want the entire system to be embedded within the national framework as a national asset. As I said, JEF 9 is going to maintain the same level of support. We are increasingly seeing proposals that we are getting under CIBIT mainly is on the national institutional frameworks, making ETF or making transparency as part of the data systems which already exists at the country level. We are foreseeing demand, considering that BTR 2 and BTR 3 submission deadlines, especially the BTR 2 submission deadline is very close, and BTR 2, third BTR submission deadlines are still to come. We are aiming to leverage transparency and the JEF 9 as a tool for evidence-based climate action, as well as the enhanced ambition. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Henning Wooster, Director of ICAT.
Thank you very much, Veronica, and good afternoon, distinguished delegates, colleagues, and I see many friends of transparency in the room, and thanks to those who don't have another meeting at 3 o'clock for staying a little longer. I'm very happy to speak to this event, and I think it's good that it becomes a tradition to repeat these dialogues, because talking about transparency needs to go beyond the transparency practitioners, and I think we have a chance to broaden the community here. Next slide, please. I want to use the opportunity not to talk so much about ICAT, but illustrate what ICAT does with one very important recent event that we held just 6 weeks ago. It was held in Naivasha in Kenya. It was the Global Transparency Community Meetings, and we had participation of over 120 governmental and non-governmental experts from some 70 countries, so quite a broad participation. I want to emphasize that it was a collaborative effort, and many of the agencies represented here on the panel were partners. We co-organized this from the ICAT side together with the CBIT GSP team, with UNEP and UNDP, and we had also technical support from the UNFCCC Secretariat, from FAO, and from PATBA. And I want to emphasize this collaborative spirit because it illustrates that we have made progress in working together, which I think is very important. It also was really a good basis for the success of the event. The event was focused, next slide please, on transparency to drive effective implementation of NDC 3.0. And in this agenda, which goes a bit beyond the traditional transparency agenda focused on the BTRs, we initially had some hesitation, but I think in the end, very strong buy-in from all the participants, which I think illustrates the importance of this agenda. And I think the event itself, and some colleagues here in the room actually participated in the event and can be a witness to that, clearly showed how important it is to integrate the different purposes of transparency. Transparency is, of course, important for reporting, but it's also providing a key basis for effective NDCs. And you will find the reference to transparency in Article 4. So it's not only Article 13. Good data provides the foundation for managing NDC implementation and enabling analysis and quality decisions that are based on sound data. Many of the core transparency elements that you see here under the what column, because that is what we discussed at this Global Transparency Community Meetings, are a core part of the transparency agenda, and they are critical for NDC implementation and eventually also for reporting. This includes the basis for setting mitigation and adaptation targets. It very centrally includes policy impact assessment, both in terms of understanding the impact of policies on climate variables like greenhouse gases or resilience, but also in terms of the development impacts of policies and measures. And clearly, the climate finance transparency agenda is a critical foundation, both for implementation and for reporting. And I don't need to explain how important the quality of NDC tracking is. All these are elements that are to a large extent new on the MRV agenda of developing countries, and it was very good to see the engagement of developing countries that participated in the transparency community meetings on those topics. This is on the right-hand side, you see how these topics were discussed, very much with a focus on engaging national actors in implementation, whether it's the sectoral line ministries or finance and planning ministries, or the broader community that need to be part of the NDC implementation. And this engagement is critical also for the quality of reporting, because these are the actors that those that are in charge of the reporting at the national level need to engage in order to receive data and input for quality reporting. So that integration is a critical aspect. The second point, of course, is that data is a crucial basis for planning and managing policies and actions for impact. And impact is then what helps to drive the NDC implementation and is critical to mobilizing finance. The third point is, of course, then very central to the transparency agenda, monitoring and evaluation of progress in order to improve climate action, but also in order to then improve the quality of reporting, which is central to the success of the Paris Agreement. So, next slide, please. Very quickly, I want to highlight that this was really a very successful event. We had very strong buy-in into the agenda from all the participants, our partners, but also the developing country participants. A clear recognition that transparency is a strategic tool that needs to be brought to life at the national level in order to be then successful at the international level for improved reporting. Clearly, many challenges remain. I won't highlight them. Some of them were mentioned before, but given the time, I'll skip that. I just want to end with a very positive message, because the event was focused on peer-to-peer exchange. And I want to emphasize that all countries and all experts that participated had something to contribute. So there is progress on all fronts in all countries, and they are eager to share that. So the peer-to-peer setting really works well, and I think we can be confident that there are out there at least some 70 countries from across the globe that are very engaged on this agenda. And for ICAT, this is, of course, an incentive to continue. We continue to be available to support developing countries, and happy also to collaborate with partners in moving this forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Henning. And I'm really sorry that we are a little bit behind. We have one more panelist and then the closing remarks, and then we will all be able to go to lunch. So with that, I give the floor to Mr. Marshall Bernoux, Climate Change Team Leader of the Office of Climate Change, Biodiversity and Environment of FAO.
Thank you. And I will try to be the fastest of the panelists, because I'm the last one before your lunch. Next slide, we can go quite quickly. So, and we will update those slides because the font is a little bit too small. But basically, just to say that we are very proud with all the other partners, also UNEP, UNDP, ICAT, and with the Jeff, on the Secretariat to support, and this is what we have today. So you can see the number 2712, a portfolio of 55 million, but we have also proud to be supporting Turkey, that will be the incoming presidency, and also Ethiopia for the BTR, for that will also COP32. So we are really proud to support also that continuity of COP to COP. We work also closely on, with other countries with two global CBIT projects that have been proved to be key to support the other on the development of the portfolio that we have. So one on the data, on one mostly on, you can see, institutional arrangement, greenhouse gas inventory, mitigation, adaptation, as my colleagues already said, connecting with the full needs, that is not only the BTR, but why we have a BTR is also for NDC, for NAP, for other aspects. And you have on the side the number of people that we reach on that. If I add the countries that we supported on NDC, like my colleagues from UNDP, we reach more than 120 countries as well. The next slide. So you see, I can be brief. But basically, how we do that, and this is basically expression of interest. So we have in place a mechanism. You go to FAO, type FAO ETF, and then you will find on our webpage that we have also a country-driven demand. So you can submit your demand, and if I look just quickly the numbers that we have, basically we have supported 36 unique countries through that mechanism, and basically 252 expression of interest, or more than one for a certain country, and 1/3 on-site, and 2/3 remote. So we can do also remote mentoring support. So it's also something feasible that can sometimes just address a small bottleneck. So it was really important. On to be brief, moving on the bullet point 4 here, partnership and coordination. We have seen the first example that we had, the first centralized review exercise that was really key to bring all the partners and all the countries to exchange. Next slide. On challenges and lessons learned. So basically, I would say we share the same challenges and also success. And basically, this is here, and you will have access to that. So I will stop here because I guess it's more important that we close that meeting in time, because myself, I am chair and reporting a session starting at 3. So over to you.
Thank you very much, and we will try to close as fast as possible. And a big round of applause to our panelists and support providers. And thank you for sharing your experiences. And I would now, and I think this was a very extremely productive dialogue, and that's why we needed more time to give to parties and everybody to provide their views. With that, I will give the floor for closing remarks to Mrs. Shuhong Wan, the Director of the Transparency Division.
I promise I'll be very, very short, quick, and I won't stand between you and the late lunch. But first of all, really, thank you so much. As we come to the closure of today's event, I really would like to thank all our speakers, participants for their valuable contributions, and really thank you to everyone. I mean, the fact that you are in the midst of a very busy session, you spent more than 2 hours here with us today. From the beginning to the end, it really demonstrates that transparency is really a very, very important topic to yourself and to all of us. So during this session, we heard from representatives earlier at the beginning from the COP29, COP30, COP31 presidencies, as well as our senior director in the Secretariat, who reminded us that transparency is not simply a reporting requirement under the Paris Agreement. It's a strategic tool that enables trust, accountability, and more effective climate action. And then we also heard during today's session country experiences. So country representatives, they share today their lessons learned experience, and then how transparency brought all the benefits to life. So we heard concrete examples on how transparency systems are supporting evidence-based policy making, strengthening institutional coordination, improving access to climate finance, and enhancing national planning processes. These experiences demonstrate that transparency is not an end in itself. It is a catalyst for better decisions and more effective climate action. At the same time, our interactive dialogue served as an important reminder that significant challenges remain. Many countries continue to face capacity constraints, data gaps, and difficulties in establishing and maintaining institutional arrangements, we also heard very clearly that predictable, adequate, and sustainable support remains essential, particularly for developing countries and those with limited resources. So in this regard, I would like to really recognize the important contributions of the consultative group of experts and our partner organizations. And actually, we at the UNFCCC Secretariat, we will continue to work very closely with our partners to provide support to countries that need it, recognizing that some will require ongoing finance, training, technical assistance, and capacity building to build and maintain institutional arrangements for implementing the ETF. And also, I think one very important aspect of our work, at least, is really to see how we can work together to build more coherence and improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the process. ETF, enhanced transparency framework, really has significant resource implications. So how best to seek innovative approach, effective way to organize ourselves, including at the Secretariat, working with our partners. This is really something that lies in front. And as you heard earlier today, we have already been starting to try with some innovative effort, bringing reviews and capacity building efforts together, in one setting, ensure peer learning. So this is something that we so far heard very positive feedback, and we will continue to try and pilot. And then looking ahead, soon parties will enter another important phase of ETF journey, engaging in the review and potential update of ETF MPGs by 2028. So this process will be essential to ensure that the framework remains fit for purpose, incorporates lessons learned from the first round of reporting and response to evolving needs and capacities of countries. So as we leave this event, let us carry forward the lessons, experiences, and spirit of cooperation that have been shared today, working together to enhance transparency systems, improve the quality and accessibility of climate information, and ensure that transparency remains a powerful enabler of ambition and implementation. Secretariat remains committed to supporting parties and partners on this journey. And thank you again for your participation, your engagement, and your continued dedication to advancing climate action under the Paris Agreement. So enjoy your late lunch, and thank you again, everyone.
Thank you, Shuhong, and some guidance on how to enjoy the late lunch. We would like to thank the COP31 Presidency for offering a lunch, and this will happen in the club lounge. So if you leave this building, you will see the signs and you need to go up. And they are offering this until 5, so maybe if you have to go to another meeting, you can go later. Also to note that this is not one of its kind, the high-level dialogues. This has been happening at COPs, and we are planning to, again, at COP31, to have it there, and also in Baku at the Climate Week. So this is something that will continue because we think it's very important to engage and to raise the political momentum for transparency. And with that, a whole applause for everybody, and I'm really sorry for the time, but have a nice lunch. Thank you. No, thank you. I know everything went well, but it was